we continue with a full day of coverage on this American Graduate Day. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Soledad OBrien. All day long, our conversation has included the positive education touch points from early learning to the march toward graduation. President Obama has been leading a similar national conversation since he launched the My Brother's Keeper initiative, which provides opportunities for youth while tearing down the barriers they face from education to employment. Let's listen to the president on the program's rapid progress.
Close to 200 leaders around the country, mayors, tribal leaders, local officials, they have responded to this My Brother's Keepers Community Challenge. And they're setting up all kinds of programs, mentoring, apprenticeships, early childhood programs, internships, so that our young men and our young boys, particularly those who are at risk, have a chance to get a sense of what's possible for them.
President Obama has laid out the plan. Now it's time for all of America to open the doors of opportunity. With us today to discuss the importance of My Brother's Keeper are Paul Montero, Director of AmeriCorps Vista, and Michael Smith, Special Assistant to the President, My Brother's Keeper. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
So, Michael, let's start with you. Why is this a priority among many priorities for the White House? Why is this a big priority for the president?
You know, I think it's been a cornerstone of the president's administration to expand opportunity for all people. He believes in it deeply. He's seen what that's meant for his life, for the First Lady's life. And it's really this idea that we have a moral obligation, that America has to remain a place where you can make it if you try. Also this idea that it's not just a heartfelt thing, but it's hugely important for our economic success. America cannot remain globally competitive if we continue to write off a whole generation of young people that are not participating in the rates that they could be.
Tell me a little bit about the service aspect of AmeriCorps Vista and also how you're gauging success.
Absolutely. So we're built on the Peace Corps model of the best solutions come from the local communities themselves. So what ails one city is not necessarily what ails another. And so using locally sort of identified problems and locally identified solutions, allowing a federal resource to give people the opportunity to serve to create that early childhood education, to create opportunities to bolster high school graduation, get people to college. And we measure success by the return on the investment. For every dollar we're funded with, we return two. Vistas are focused on resource generation. So we embed them in nonprofits, in schools, to mobilize volunteers. Our Corps of 8,000 mobilized 1.3 million volunteers. And our $94 million budget from Congress was generated 210 for nonprofits and local schools.
Wow, some big numbers. So what's the role of mentors? What's the role of the faith community in all of this?
You know, everybody has a role to play in this. You know, the president likes to say that My Brother's Keeper is not some big new government program, but it's an all-hands-on-deck moment. And there have been pastors and faith leaders and local business leaders, all that have been lending a hand. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this idea that our kids need to know that they matter. They need to be inspired. Whether you're a young man that's fallen off track or whether you're a young girl who maybe has every opportunity, you need someone to say, I can do this. You need someone who looks like you. And so the president has called America to action to be mentors in lots of different ways. And the president's actually doing it himself. So we have a mentorship program at the White House. We've got 40 kids that the president, the First Lady mentor along with White House staff. It's just hugely important to make sure our kids know that they matter and have opportunities to look at success.
The private sector has answered the call. Certainly elected officials seem to have answered the call. How have the last 18 months gone?
You know, it's really interesting. If you look at February of 2014 and now, there are lots of little disparate efforts. But right now, it is clear that there is a movement. There is energy. There's excitement. There's more than 200 My Brother's Keeper communities. There's been more than $500 million in private sector investments. There have been major policy initiatives that have come from the president's My Brother's Keeper task force. And you've seen companies like JP Chase, Citi, so many folks stepping up in major ways to do something about this issue.
Outside of the ones that Michael has just mentioned, $500 million from the private sector. Who else is helping out?
Absolutely. We have private sector partners, nonprofit, many of the ones featured throughout the day today, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So many of the biggest nonprofits and medium-sized nonprofits in the country have said they want to help put their shoulder to the wheel and create opportunity and use local folks. Again, the Boys and Girls Club, for example, are tribal programs. Using about 80% of our vistas serving in tribal nations are from the tribal nation. And so, again, built on that model of local people knowing what the community needs. We were just with one of our members, Amelia Cate, who was served by a college access program in the Santo Domingo Pueblo in New Mexico, went on to college, and now has come back to serve as a Vista in Santo Domingo.
Nice virtuous circle happening there. What's ban the box, and why has this become a focus of what you're doing?
You know, the president talked about this idea of banning the box on his speech at the NAACP conference this summer. And it's simply this idea that when you go to fill out a job application, there's a box that you have to check that says, have I ever been arrested or do I have a felony? And for folks that have been formerly incarcerated, sometimes it's used as an immediate factor to say, we don't want you here. And so the president is really just trying to encourage all of us to see, how do we make sure people get a decent shot? If you've served your time and you're trying to come back into society, what can we do to make sure that you reenter? Because it's not only about them, it's about them being productive members of our economy.
What do you think has been the biggest obstacle in getting the word out to men in minority communities?
I think a big challenge has been the lack of sort of institutions to work through. The faith leader piece, I think, is a critical one. And we've often worked through faith-based organizations because that is an institution that does still have sway in the community. But with so many institutions that are either weakened or broken, it's been difficult to find a way to broadcast. The limits of social media are real. Not everyone is on a computer or on a smartphone. And simply communicating that we are here as a resource and that it's something for them to actually access as opposed to a sort of anonymous government program.
What do you get out of it? Every time I've heard from a volunteer today, and most of the time they're in tears talking about how what they're giving is so much less than what they've been getting back. Why do you do this?
Well, this is deeply personal to me. One, I obviously have an opportunity to serve a president that I think is extraordinary. But I was a kid that was born to teenage parents in Western Massachusetts with lots of crime and lots of violence and lots of opportunity to fall off the tracks. And if it weren't for a whole lot of grace, if it weren't for an incredible community, if it weren't for my Boys and Girls Club, that changed a life. And now as I'm a little bit older and I think of those people that weren't getting paid very well, that were sacrificing a whole lot of time, that just took a little extra moment to help my family that didn't have a lot of money or a lot of time, put me on track, it becomes just a deep, deep honor to think about policy solutions and community solutions to make sure the next kids that look like me have every opportunity as well.
Well, the two of you have really been doing amazing work. Thanks for talking with me today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michael Smith and Paul Montero. Critical problem, your work obviously very much appreciated. Thanks for joining us here on American Graduate Day. One major proponent of My Brother's Keeper is Shaquille O'Neal, who's dedicated some big time and some big talent to supporting the youth of America in a number of inspiring ways. I'm happy to introduce our next segment in which Shaquille O'Neal sits down to interview a young man named DeMarcus Womack, who's been celebrated by My Brother's Keeper.
Hi, Shaquille O'Neal here at the Orlando local Boys and Girls Club to talk about the great work of My Brother's Keeper Alliance. I'm here with an amazing young man, DeMarcus Womack. DeMarcus, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine.
DeMarcus, like so many young men of color, you grew up in a rough neighborhood. Can you tell me what that was like?
I mean, growing up in the inner city of Orlando, you learn a lot of things that you probably wouldn't learn in different areas. You kind of grow up kind of faster than the average child. So you kind of tend to see things that you're not supposed to see, and you kind of either go with those things or you kind of learn from those things.
You lost your mom at the age of 13. How did that affect you?
Well, that affected me tremendously. Like, I was in the process of going from middle school to high school. I lost my mom in the summertime. I felt like the person who took care of me the most was no longer here, so I felt like no teacher or dean or principal could tell me anything. So I kind of acted out.
I see you're a big fella. Obviously, you played football. How was that? How were you as a high school player?
I always felt like I was average Joe with just football. Like, I just played it just to release my anger. Like I mentioned earlier, I had anger problems, so that was my way of taking my anger out. But it wasn't until my 11th grade year till I began to take it serious when my high school coaches told me I had the potential to play Division I football. So I kind of buckled down in the classroom and on the field and did what I had to do to, try to accomplish that goal.
So after high school, you got caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. You ended up doing, I think it was 8 months in jail. How was that experience like for you?
I believe that was the experience that turned me from a boy to a man. Like, being incarcerated kind of like opened my eyes to the real world. Being in that concrete jungle, it was like you had to survive. And basically some of the things I learned growing up in that rough environment kind of helped me survive behind bars. You had to be a man. Ain't nobody go pamper you or baby you. And then I got knowledge from a lot of older people who done been in the system all their life, and I just see how they was. They were some great dudes, but they made a lot of decisions that they couldn't get out of. And I ain't want to go down that same path as them. So while I was in jail, it was like all this stuff was going on with my friends in the streets, like they getting shot at and all this different type of stuff. So I felt like God put me in this situation to save my life, and I know that it had to be him who got me through this situation. So I just, basically, like I said, I just found the positive out of that negative situation.
So after your mom passed away, who took care of you?
I moved in with my grandma.
Oh, grandma? Oh, tell me what that was like. Because I love and I miss my grandma. Tell me what that was like.
Staying with grandma, boy. Anybody in Orlando who know my grandma, she wasn't the sweetest old lady, but she made it happen for me and the rest of my cousins. And then she passed away too, and that what really kind of got my mind right and told me, like, I got to do something to make my mom and my grandma happy. She died while I was incarcerated, and when I got out, I was like, I got to do it right.
So you're playing football again, this time at Bethune-Cookman, your first game against the University of Miami. What's your goals after college?
I want to start a nonprofit to help some of the kids in my neighborhood not go through some of the same things I had to go through. It's going to be called the MAC Foundation, motivating all challenged kids, not challenged in a way like they handicap or anything, but just like challenges that they face every day, like from lunch money at school or like just not having the financial like stability to do anything that other kids around America can do. So pretty much that's what I want to get into when I graduate from college.
So as you travel the country with My Brother's Keeper Alliance, what's your message to all the kids that have lost hope?
My number one thing that I could say to all the kids around America, never lose hope. Like just no matter the circumstances or anything you're going through, just always keep a positive mind at whatever and just continue to strive. Like, cause ain't no journey gonna be a clear journey. There's gonna be, you know what I'm saying, you gonna get bumps and bruises in the road on your way to success, but you just gotta go through it to get to where you wanna get.
MBK celebrates how you changed your life. How does that make you feel?
It made me feel good. It made me feel like my story is go get out around the nation and be able to reach other kids who probably going through similar situations that I went through and maybe motivate them to continue to strive like I did.
Trust me, young man, if you keep that attitude, you want to do it right for mama and grandmama, that motivation right there will never let you down. All your dreams will come true. Might not come true right away, but if you stay the course, either next day or sometime in the future, but don't ever give up. And for mama and grandma, I'm with that.
Yep.
For Mom and Grandma, thank you to Marcus Womack and Shaquille O'Neal.